Welcome back for a couple last special episodes here. I decided that this week I had two more I really wanted to give you, and I'm going to start with mine today. Tomorrow will be Jen Love, and the final one will be Mark Phillips later on this week. But what I wanted to do was I realized in the midst of all these special clinics, or the clinics at large, I didn't actually have any clinics about legacy giving. And legacy giving is a massive part of the work that we do here at Agents of Good. And so, like I said, I've recorded Jen Love, who's going to be up tomorrow after this one. And she gives us some very thoughtful ideas about legacy giving. But I want to share, like I have done through this whole series, a bunch of practical things that you can think about and do. So I'm going to try to share my screen, share, and go play. Okay, I really hope you can see this because if I've messed this up, then it's going to be a long day to re-record it all over again. So this is a session I have done a few times, and I've basically just shrunk it down to some of the key essentials. It's going to be about 20 minutes, maybe, give or take. But again, I want to make sure that I sent this to you for people who, and hopefully all of you are working on legacy giving. So here's some ideas, some inspiration ideas for finding and looking after these precious donors, these precious legacy donors. This session will help you start, plan, grow, nurture, and harvest a very, very special crop of donors. I've said this before in our sessions, all of us, we dream of a better world than we're living in these days. All of us do. And I like to remind people we have the honor and the privilege to ensure that their dreams and our dreams come true by doing work like this, like legacy giving. So let's start with the foundation. I will go through this because some of the stuff you've heard before, but it's always good to repeat in a different format. Maybe this time it'll stick more in your brain than it did last time. But remember, direct response is direct marketing. It's sales, it's fundraising, it's online, it's offline. And it's made up of a few things that are really important. Of course, there's the list, the people you are talking to. You can't have direct marketing. You're not doing direct marketing unless you're very specific on who are you talking to and what are you asking them for. Of course, when it arrives in their inboxes or mailboxes or however you're sending to them matters and what it looks like. I always joke, of course, I'm a creative person. I love to talk about creative. And this session will sort of touch on all these things in big and small ways. So, in the context of legacy giving, it all starts with a vision, a plan. Just like, if you're doing a garden at home, you have to have a rough idea of what it is you're trying to attempt, what are you trying to build, what are you trying to grow, and all that stuff. And again, I'll cover off some of the basics as we go along the way, but just in case you haven't heard before, or again, just a reminder of some of the basic ideas. But typically, you have four rows in your legacy garden. You have suspects. These are potential donors that fit with the profile of someone you are looking for. You have prospects. These are donors that already support your charity, and they're maybe thinking about leaving a legacy gift to you. You have intenders. These are donors who told you that they have left a legacy gift to you. And of course, you have the dearly departed. These are the beautiful people, the beautiful souls who have left not only this world, but also a legacy gift in their will to you. So we always ask, this is Dale, this is my mother-in-law, like, what's her story? She has her own story that she wants to share with you. When I talk about Dale, she's in her very late 70s now. She gives single gifts to about 30 of you, probably monthly gifts to maybe about 4 or 5 of you. She wrote her first will in her 40s or 50s, but she'll change her will through her lifetime to include organizations like yours, when she gets into about her 80s. So right about now. And really, this work is all about her and the conversations you're blessed to have with her every single day. It's really important to point out that Dale is loyal, but she's not rich. Now, why do I want to point this out? Because obviously, we do a good job sometimes in the context of legacy giving, making it seem like it's only for rich people. We spend a lot of time looking for and talking to rich people, and Dale's not it. And the reason why this is important is because, you've all seen this traditional pyramid, donor pyramid, and a lot of people who are responsible for legacy fundraising are also responsible for major gifts. And obviously, as you know, if you work in major gifts, it forces you to focus on where the big gifts will come from today. Well, the problem is this is where most of your legacy gifts are going to come from tomorrow. And when I say tomorrow, I mean next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So you can see why these two roles can deviate. If you're responsible for major gifts, again, this is not much of a priority because the main priority is the gifts for today. And most of your legacy gifts are going to come from these minor donors, that 80% of the file that, again, we like to just automate or ignore. The thing that I really want to point out is the well executed legacy program, and we have some clients who do this very well. It can quickly outpace any major gift program, basically because of the sheer volume of donors that we're talking about. So you need good soil, as we know, to plant a garden. So what does that mean? It basically means that you care for all donors, regardless of the size of their wallet. And you need to create space in your programs, in your direct response program for conversations with them. This is something we do all the time. I've shared a lot of examples of this. Here's an example that we did for Ontario Nature a couple years ago. We're always trying to create space for donors to share things with us. So on the reply form here, you can see join our conservation conversation. It's a mouthful. And the other thing is the donors will send these back. We got a whole bunch back to this thing. And this one basically says, having just reached 90 years of age, I believe you can understand my forgetting to send you a reply to your last request. I was so glad to receive this letter from you and do something about it. A few months ago, I happily also added Ontario Nature to my will, and I'm so glad there are so many people who care about what happens to nature in Ontario. I love these things. This one obviously is a standout because she actually has said, I've actually left a gift in my will to you. The client didn't actually realize it when they sent all these over. They were just scanning and sending over. No one had actually read what she wrote, and we made sure the client knew what this person just disclosed this thing. But donors will tell you so much about themselves by the way they write, by the references they use, just things like in terms of how long they've been giving to you, the things they care about. This is really important information, better than you'll get just in a standard checkboxy survey. So you have to be creating space for conversations with donors. And of course, you ask with thoughtfulness. I've covered off a lot of these things in these clinics all the way through. And that basically means, you're doing the basics right. You're asking your donors appropriately and thoughtfully all the time. You're saying thank you with sincerity and appreciation. And you're telling the donor the impact of each gift, regardless of its size. And these circles, are proportionate. If we spent even a fraction as much time investing energy and emotions into how we were thanking our donors or showing them the impact of their giving, we would be a much different sector almost immediately. And as I've said, you're having emotional conversations with your donors. You should always be thinking about what we just talked about with donors and what we need to talk about next. What is the conversation over the course of a month, a few months, a year, years? What are we doing? What's the conversation here? I've talked about the letter story offer ask must contain a problem, a solution, and the action that your donor needs to take. I've talked about offers. The most classic direct response offer is give us $7 now or the dog gets it. And I see so many packs that have no offer ask. We need to be doing these things all the time in our annual giving over and over again. And of course, you say thank you with love. I've got a couple examples I want to share with you here, which are a bit of a spoiler maybe for my last live episode next week. But this is an example that I got from my friends at the Redwood. And this is exactly what you need to do. It was a simple card. It had my name and address, my old mailing address, so don't send me mail there. And this card had an image done by one of the kids who lived at the Redwood, which was a shelter in Toronto for women who are leaving domestic abuse situations. And what they did was they paper clipped my receipt on the top of the letter, which was brilliant, on the top of the card. And then they include this little letter. Dear John, thank you so much for your wonderful gift of $250 for the Summer Fun campaign, specifically the barbecue fun in Redwood Park. It will be a fantastic treat. You're always very kind to women and children staying with us, and thank you for being such a wonderful supporter. Have a beautiful summer, the Redwood team. This covers all the basic functionality of a thank you letter, which is we got your gift, specifically how much it was for and what we were able to do with it, and it has lots of gratitude. It's this simple. This is all you have to do, at least this. This is brilliant. A plus. And obviously, just like a garden, if you're trying to plant in very bad soil, then definitely don't expect much to grow. So, in other words, for legacy giving, if your soil in your annual program isn't very good, you're not doing any of these things, then don't expect much from your legacy program either. It's just not how it works. So, you reap what you sow. I have a little joke here that says, now let's pot it like it's hot, which is so awful. But how do we sow these seeds properly so they can grow? So, who are the donors that one should start with in talking to about legacy giving? Who in your annual program would we be targeting, or should you be targeting to have this conversation with? Here's some of the list: actives, active donors, loyal donors, monthlies, lapsed donors, board members, past board members, memorial donors, tribute donors, volunteers, event RSPC, RV, RSP. Be peers. And now, of course, all at once. You can do this bits and bobs at a time. You don't really want to all of a sudden send out a massive mailing and actually get a decent result, right? Because then it creates a lot of work for you. Most of your legacy prospects are going to come from your annual program. Again, these are small donors who've been giving to you for probably decades. And these donors who they give you what they can for years, they feel hopefully connected to the impact of their generosity. And these donors, like Dale, they don't think of themselves as Rockefellers, but people who just worked hard their whole lives. They maybe own a home, in your communities. Maybe they have a cottage up north or something, and they definitely probably have more money than they appear. Again, they don't look rich, but they are richer than they probably think they are. Jeff Russell James suggests these are some of the people, or these are definitely like life events where maybe I'm thinking about rewriting my will. I've got a health change in my life, divorce, loss of a partner, diagnosis of a significant health problems, stroke, first grandchild, increased wealth. These are some life moments where people will revisit or change their will. So again, and strangely enough, as Russell James points out, the list for removing you out of my will is actually the same. These are life points where I may review my will, and I can either add you in or take you out. And like some people say, never forget, these are revocable gifts. Even if I've told you allowed to gift in your will, doesn't mean I can't remove it. I will remove it if I'm not treated well. This is from my pal Tom Ahern. Here's some other biographical milestones for when donors are writing their wills. House kids. These are all things that we know are times when we're writing these wills. Often people are looking for all these younger donors, but here's where the donors, you're looking for probably are coming from in this age range. Same in your annual program. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't be looking for younger donors, but if you do work in an annual, this is the low hanging fruit. This is where these are the people who are in that stage where they're writing their will for the last time. So, how do we find these donors in our file? This is a prospect legacy mail pack for Ontario Nature, which went out to their annual donors. It was invitational size. This is something that should be very different than your day in and day out or month in and month out annual appeals. And this legacy letter is long, it's 4 pages, and it opens getting the reader thinking about the last time nature took your breath away. She says, when was the last time they took your breath away? For me, it was this past spring when I was walking amongst a stunning patch of Virginia bluebells at the Sydenham River Nature Reserve, Ontario Nature's newest nature reserve. Nature lovers like you and me experience these moments frequently, whether it's on a walk or just looking out the window. You and I both know nature can take your breath away as long as you're connected to it. And when we have these stunning moments, they become some of our most cherished memories. So this is a letter that really is filled with this person, the ED, Caroline's her reflection of how and why she cares about nature. But more importantly, she's actually touching about a whole bunch of values. Caroline even mentions how these are shared with their donors, their own personal values. We give to organizations to see our values in action. That's why we actually give to you. And so Caroline talks about all these values and the importance of always having an organization like hers, Ontario Nature, to protect the wild spaces and wild species we love the most. And then we include this timeline. This is a very donor focused timeline, and it includes shared victories and dreams for the future. So, me, the donor, is reflecting on the story of my own life. And it's connecting the activity of this charity to my own anchors and milestones, things I will remember and know about. And the reply form is basically looking for legacy donors, intenders, or prospects. And again, there's space for me to share something about myself if I wish. So that's an example. This one I pulled out. The reason I pulled this out is because I know Russell James had done some recent testing, and it's this line under the second checkbox. I made this gift in tribute or memorial to. Um, Apparently, according to Russell, it said it helped 1 in 4 people further self-identify that they've left a gift on their will. In other words, it brought out more people saying this is something they've done because we're almost always giving a memory of someone or something, and I think that was the theory. And so, tribute and memorial giving will be massive. So this is a checkbox again we add most of the time to these kinds of surveys. Here's another example we did for a hospital foundation. This was the editor envelope. This was like a 9 by 6 editor envelope. It was closed face, had, of course, first class postage on it. I've talked about these things before. And the letter was very short. It came from Katerina, who was in charge of legacy giving. The importance of having personal people that I can reach out to, direct lines. If I want to talk to Katerina, I can see who she is. I can see her face. I can read her name. I can call her directly to talk about this. You want to make sure you have an identity. Who's your person? Who's your go-to person? And are you sharing that with your donors? Because I want to have conversations, especially this one with a human. I don't want to just send something into the void. And so the survey, we include the survey in this pack, which is a bit longer. And, Russell James showed us that legacies come from this autobiographical part of our brain. And so surveys are useful and great tools because they allow us to let the donor think about their relationship to the organization or more likely the cause. And that's what the first opening questions basically do. And of course, surveys put the donor in control of a very important part of the conversation, which is how do you want to be remembered? So these are two different versions or two different packs, and there's variations within this too, but very typical packs to send out to find these donors. Your garden, just like any garden, once you've got it planted, it needs constant tending. You need to take care of it. And again, if you're a gardener like me, it's a lot of work. It's not something you can disappear for a month on vacation and come back and you'll find everything dead. So you have to, not in a good way either. You have to really take care of this garden. You should be having some version of this love story, which we have talked about in other presentations. And this love story grid maps out all these touch points between you and donors or your community, and it's anchored around feelings. And so we do develop these for every type of donor, including legacy donors. And so again, it makes you think about what is this conversation I'm having, again, for these very, very special donors. And once you've started this conversation, or in other words, once you've planted the garden, you can't stop. Like I said, you can't just plant it and walk away. So in newsletters, we want to make sure that we're talking about legacy donors, the living and past. This is a seed. This is something, again, if I'm an annual donor, or it reminds me, oh yeah, I can do this as well. You give recognition to people who are doing this or who have done this. Things like gratitude reports, again, are a great place where you can acknowledge these donors. Again, for the donors that are in the annual program, again, you're reminding them they can do this if they want, and you're also celebrating these important donors. For a number of clients, we're developing legacy-focused newsletters. So this only goes out to people who identify themselves as actual legacy donors or prospects. It's a very special newsletter, only talking about legacy giving. And it's really important to have patience and trust the process. This is like a garden. This is a long game, my friends. And again, it's back to that original idea that sometimes the people who are responsible for it they have too much pressure on them to only focus on the short game. And that's why it's somewhat problematic. And the work takes time. Here's a few of the things to add or create for your donors as it relates to this conversation. This is a piece we created called the Why brochure. Donors who've raised their hands saying they're thinking about leaving a gift in a will or have will get a piece like this. And it shares the most amazing and inspiring stories of donors who have left a gift to the organization. This isn't an 8.5 by 3.5 trifold brochure with a sunset on the front. It's nothing like that at all. This is we really want this to look like a curated field guide, something that was had some visual meaning to these donors, and it was something that would resonate with them, and of course made sense to the organization. And again, we shared some amazing stories, which I won't read today, but if you have some time, you can read it yourself as you watch this video. And we closed it out with a letter from Caroline about like the organizational legacy vision. It didn't have any boring checklists. It didn't talk about the transactional aspect of leaving a gift in your will. You know, our job is to hold a mirror up to our donors and show her how people like her have done this amazing thing, and she can too. So she'll be nodding along as she reads these stories and hears the echoes of them in her own heart. You know, you do have things like we call it a how letter. How do I go about doing it? Most donors know how to like write a, do a will. They understand these things exist. They may understand how to put charities into them if they wish. But in the context of yours, here's the specific ins and outs. This is a separate piece that goes in the specific ins and outs, the transactional part of leaving this kind of gift. You need to learn how to deal with things that are outside your control. As you know, when you plant a garden, there's lots of things you can't control. In the context of legacy giving, things like pandemics, recessions, postal strikes, which is what we're in the middle of right now, disasters, life changes, basically everything. As David Love, the Godfather of Good, says all the time, this is one gift we will not be responsible for closing. The donor will ultimately decide when they want to make this gift. And reap your harvest. It's not about the money. This is about donors' dreams. And I want to share this video with you that my beautiful, amazing business partner Jen recorded for me as a part of this video. So sit back, have a sip of your coffee, and let's just have hear a story from the amazing storyteller Jen Love.
I'm here to have a brief interlude and talk about empathic story gathering and inspired storytelling around legacies. And that's really about having amazing conversations with people who love your organization. Many of the people who I talk to around legacy storytelling will be donors who've been giving to you or volunteering with you for ages. You've made the same family budget for these people, along with cat food and deck chairs forever. That's how much they care about you. So being able to share stories about legacy donors in a way that inspires others is such a gift. Legacy fundraising is the most ultimate form of supporter-led giving. You can't control, your budget can't control, there is no influencing when a donor gift is realized. So what we can do, the pleasure and privilege of our work, is sharing stories about these amazing people, the impact that they have as a way to inspire others. It's amazing to let donors express their dreams for the future and their wishes for forever with you, through you. So I'm going to tell you just one of the amazing and memorable conversations that I've had recently with a legacy donor, Dr. Tanya Bruno. And Dr. Bruno is connected to Campfire Circle, which is a camp for kids and families impacted by cancer. They have an amazing outdoor adventure camp in our beautiful Lakes region here in Ontario. And they also have programs and games and activities and music and oncology wards all across Ontario for kids who are experiencing cancer in the hospital. So the camp is a fully functioning hospital as well. So it's a way for kids to get amazing care and love in the hospital, not these amazing camp programs. So we've been working with Campfire Circle for a while, and we've been planting, as John has already probably talked about, legacy seeds through their program over years, newsletters, appeals at events, sharing stories of other donors, stories of impact. And it was one of these legacy seeds that led to a phone call coming into the organization from this woman, Dr. Tanya Bruno, who's a doctor, and had recently lost her son to cancer and wanted to establish a legacy in his honor because camp had been such a huge part of his life since his sudden diagnosis when he was 14. So this is the story of Dr. Tanya Bruno and her son Marcus. So Marcus had a sudden and acute onset of a very painful condition and had to have multiple surgeries, grueling recoveries over months and months. But he kept up with his swimming, he kept up with his exercise as much as he could. He was a gifted athlete, and he had a chance to attend camp. And his mom said, as a mom, I was thrilled for him. I knew he was going to have an amazing time and it was going to ring so many of his bells and things he hasn't been able to do since he got sick. But as a doctor, I was a little hesitant. This was no small feat. He was going to need active chemo. That was a conflict for me, she said. Within a few days of his experience at camp, she came to understand that camp was as important as chemo, as important as radiation, as important as surgery. And she acknowledged her strong feelings about this as a doctor. She said camp was life affirming, it prolonged his life. At camp, he was also able to express a great love of his, which was music. In the dining hall at camp, there's a piano, and whenever Marcus would sit down to play, everyone would gather, the kids, the counselors, the volunteers, and the staff. And he radiated when he played music. Being able to do that for campers and families, Tanya told me she knew that that meant so much to him. Music was his joy. He loved sharing it, especially classical music, his most favorite being Chopin. The more he excelled at music, the more it became therapeutic for him. Just a few months after he'd been at camp, he was auditioning for a very prestigious spot at the University of Toronto Music School. And he'd been more tired than usual leading up to this audition. And when they looked back at some of his photos from camp, they could see that there was this bump on his head that had changed. And they saw the doctor immediately. He had emergency surgery to remove half of his skull and underwent immediate brain and spine radiation. He took the time off, took the day off treatment to go to his audition, and everyone described his audition as the performance of his life. Absolutely transcendent, spectacular. This was coming from his longtime instructors, also the faculty at U of T. And Dr. Bruno said to me, she said, I remember he used to tell me, Mom, I can feel my soul when I play. And she said, and when I talk about him, that's when I can feel his soul. She went on to say that when Marcus died, she knew she would support camp forever, and that she knew that's why she had taken the step to leave camp in her will. Camp never asked anything from us, she said, and knowing that camp will be free forever for other kids like Marcus, that makes me feel his soul too. So this conversation that I had with Dr. Tanya Bruno was really a way for her to express part of the story of her life. And this gift was one of the most important gifts of her life. It's a perfect legacy story for me because it reminds me that by sharing our stories with our loved ones, we live on. And our loved ones live on when we share their stories. The last thing I want to say is that I'm constantly reminded when I work in legacy storytelling that every gift is a major gift to a legacy donor. Every gift is a major gift to the donor sitting in front of you. And it's likely more meaningful than major gift that comes from somebody with tremendous wealth. Like I said at the beginning, these are people who give to you the way they support their family budget every month. So every gift is a major gift to the donor in front of you. And I'm constantly reminded about that around legacies. So it's a really amazing opportunity to tell the stories of everybody who's giving what they can in remarkable ways. And for the people that love you enough to want to give forever, let's honor their stories and use it to inspire others. Thank you. Love you, buddy. I'll see you soon.
I've seen this a number of times. Like I said, I've used this, and every time I see this, it always uh, chokes me up. So, Jen, love everyone. Thank you, Jen. So I want to sort of close out the special clinic with a couple last little ideas here, and I share this idea of this of the three deaths. I'm hoping you've heard of this from a book called Some by David Eagleman. And the idea of the three deaths is we die. All of us we die three times. We die the first time the breath leaves our body for the last time, and we physically die. The second time is when our body is returned to the earth or whatever ceremony is meaningful to you and the people who you love you the most. That's when we die the second time. And we die for the third and final time, the last time our name is uttered for all eternity. And I'm I say this because we have the beautiful privilege in this work of legacy fundraising to ensure that our donors' names and stories will live on forever. And I can't think of anything more beautiful than that, or could possibly choke me up more on this day of recording this. So, like I say in a lot of my sessions, please, ask and talk to your donors with lots of thoughtfulness. Say thank you, and again, have these beautiful conversations filled with as much love as you possibly can give to them. And always remind your donor how much you need them and appreciate the amazing work that they make possible with you. Share the amazing stories that happen around you. Measure what matters most, which is these beautiful humans we call donors. And as I've starting my presentations, I'm ending this one with please do your work with love. We know we need as much people working in the sector who are taking care and tenderly thinking about their work and their role in this beautiful craft. So I am rooting for you. Thank you so much for sitting with me. I'm not sure exactly how long the special clinic was, but thank you for taking the time to watch this. Like I said, I'll have one up probably tomorrow, or there'll be another one from Jen with a little more storytelling. Make sure you have a box of Kleenex around. Just like I should have had one for myself today, because she shares some other beautiful stories and perspectives on legacy giving. We will wrap up the special clinics with one from Mark Phillips, which is about the data behind gratitude. And then I have one more last final clinic for you, which will be touching about and on gratitude. So thank you so much for taking some time with me today, or whenever you sat down, or wherever you may be in the world, and whatever day it may be. Please be safe, take care, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day.